Hi, my name's Nick Rains and I've been a full-time professional photographer for almost 30 years, shooting all sorts of stuff from sports to celebrities and stories for magazines like Australian Geographic. And I've been using Canon cameras for the past 27 years. I use Canon printers too. Small prints and proofs get made on the Pixma Pro 1 and my bigger exhibition prints go on the 24-inch IPF 6300. Back in the day, I made my prints in the wet darkroom, but I'm no dinosaur. Now, if I want to make a great print, I fire up one of my Canon printers, slip in a few sheets of luster, and away we go. Too easy. Before we get into how to make prints, it's probably a good time to look at what Canon printers are available and which one to choose. There are 3 models in Canon's Pixma Pro range of printers, and they all look very similar, as you can see. They all do A3 Plus prints, which is a good general purpose size for framing or selling because it's about an inch bigger all around than A3. So, how do you choose which one to buy? The first thing to mention is that they all make great prints, that's a given. So it's the subtle differences that we need to discuss. The Pro 100 uses a different set of inks to the other two, ChromaLife 100 Plus dye inks to be exact. Now in theory, dyes are slightly more vivid than the pigment tints of the other 2 printers, but in practice, this shows up in different and subtle ways, something which we'll discuss in more detail in the video about paper choices. Dyes used to be considered semi-permanent compared to pigments. In fact, early inkjet printers measured dye permanence in weeks rather than in years. When I researched some recent independent testing results, I found that this new generation of dyes is good for well over 30 years displayed in a frame, or almost indefinitely in a dark, dry place. By the way, that's 30 years before you can detect a small difference, not 30 years when it's completely blank. In my mind, that's plenty, and to put it in perspective, the best prints from photo labs are currently rated by the same tests at much the same timescale. The other 2 printers, the Pro 10 and the Pro 1, use Lucia pigment-based inks. These are more permanent, rated to over 100 years, which might well be a deal maker for you personally. In my own case, I prefer to make good prints rather than worry too much about whether my prints still look good 100 years from now, so any distinction I make about dyes and pigments will be more about the look than the longevity. Regarding the look, the Lucia ink sits more on the surface of the paper and tends to slightly dull down any glossiness, and for this reason the dye ink set looks best on glossy paper if you want to keep that glossiness on display. Behind glass, it's quite hard to see any difference, and the Chroma Optimizer in the Pro 10 and the Pro 1 puts a clear coating over the image area, further reducing any gloss differential as it's known. One area where I clearly see the benefits of the Lucia pigment ink set is the blacks of semi-gloss and glossy prints. I've measured this myself and I get the blackest blacks of any printer I've ever printed with. Blacks are important because they control contrast, and you can always reduce contrast in a print, but it's very hard to add it. For black and white prints, good contrast is critical, and the Pro 1, which uses 4 different blacks at the same time as the 6 colour inks, produces wonderfully rich black and white prints, as good as any I've ever seen. By using more actual black ink, you'll see a tonally neutral print, something quite hard to achieve mixing only colour inks. On the other hand, the Pro 10 uses only 2 blacks at a time, so is potentially less subtle in the dark tones, but it's really hard to see in practice, to the point where you almost need to force the differences to show up by printing artificial test prints designed to show up problems. One other important distinction between the 3 printers is the size of the ink cartridges. The Pro 1 uses 36mm carts, which are almost 3 times bigger than the other 2 printers. This means it's perfect for high volume printing and will keep day-to-day running costs down. Choice of printer then comes down to the types of prints and the number of prints you intend to make. If you print a lot, then the lower running costs of the Pro 1 will pay for itself quickly, but if you print only very intermittently but need the longevity of pigment inks, then the Pro 10 might be a better buy. If you print a lot on fine art matte papers, the Pro 100 might be a good choice because dyes are better in the bright pastel colours, as well as giving better contrast in the deep shadows. If you want the absolute best glossy or semi-gloss prints, and the new luster is my favourite paper at the moment, with full archival life, then the Pro 1 is the go. Rest assured that whichever one you buy, you will get great prints right out of the box. And one last thing, whilst the Pro 10 and 100 are certainly quiet printers, the Pro one is so quiet that you almost have to put your ear to it to see if it's working.